The police officers try to use different commands with him. They try to use a taser not once but twice on him. They told him to quit resisting arrest. He had a gun in his pocket. They saw that gun when he was reaching for it, and after using non-lethal force, they used lethal force. We also know that, unfortunately, drugs were found in his system, which they say contributed probably to his non-compliance with those police officers.
You are out your damn mind. I cannot believe.
That's exactly what the report says.
No.
That's what it says on CNN.com right now.
Let me tell you, and I'm so glad
How am I out
that
of
you
my
brought it
mind
up.
for stating the facts?
You're out of your mind because let me tell you why.
How?
This is the only country, this is the only place in the world where someone will get killed and we talk about what's in their system.
Did he have a gun in his pocket?
You know what? He absolutely had a gun in his pocket, but you know what? It's probably
Did he comply with police?
It's probably real hard to reach for a gun when you're in a headlock.
Drugs in his system?
Have you ever been in a headlock? Have you ever tried to reach
I
in
actually
your
have,
hands
yes.
while you've been in a headlock? I don't think you can.
Here's what I know.
well.
You don't get
Here's
to
what else is
negotiate with the
interesting.
police
Here's
when you
what
have a
else
gun
is
in your
interesting.
pocket.
Here's what else.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Headline series. I'm your host Jay, and this is The Objective. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the 47th episode of the Let's Talk Headline series. The date is March 29, 2018, and again, I do want to thank you for the support. If you are a newcomer, if you do appreciate and enjoy the content, feel free to like and subscribe and show some support. You'll get some notifications for the next video. Before we begin with the episode, I just want to remind you to visit www.politicalstorm.com. I am fortunate enough to be a contributor to the website. I write articles for the website. I also upload my podcasts to the website. So definitely check out Political Storm, but not only for that reason. I want you to go there and support some of the other contributors, very talented people on all different sides of the spectrum, the political spectrum, that is. And it's just a place where, you know, everyone's opinion is respected. Everyone's opinion is considered. And it's a platform that's dedicated to bringing discussion back to politics. So if you are interested in something like that, definitely check out politicalstorm.com. The quote of the day is actually from Martin Luther King Jr. It says, "Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Martin Luther King. Straightforward quote. And I just want us to remember it, keep it at the forefront of our minds as we go through the week in our workplace, at home, when interacting with family, coworkers, spouse, whatever the case may be. We just have to remember that we have to be the change that we want to see. And it's easy for me to say that sitting here while not actively involved in some sort of conflict, but it's something, you know, principally that we want to consider. You know, we don't want to be quick on the draw. You know, we're easily defensive when it comes to arguments. It's easy to fight hatred with hatred. It's easy to, you know, make war instead of peace. But in order to actually have or come to conclusions and solutions, you need to be able to step out of that primitive mind state and work towards solutions. So I'll leave it at that, folks. So we're going to start off the show with some news that we got yesterday. Alton Sterling, the deceased, who was shot and killed by police in 2016, Baton Rouge. It happened outside of a convenience store. Some of you may remember there was a lot of uproar and anger and vitriol and hostility towards police. There were riots after this shooting, and a lot of individuals felt that this man was murdered in cold blood. And this is obviously not the first time these concerns have been raised in America. And I think it's important before we even begin or delve into this topic, I think it's important to understand that regardless as to where you sit on this issue, whether you agree that the officers are right, it's important for us to know that this anger, yes, there are bandwagons, and yes, there is misplaced hatred, but you know, there's a historical context behind this mistrust, this general mistrust for police. You can't get away from that. And for those people who believe that he was murdered, it's very important to understand that you have to take these shooting situations, these dynamic situations, you have to take these scenarios and actually look at them at a case by case. You have to look at them in a case by case way. You can't just generalize and make blanket statements for each of these situations because they're starkly different. The circumstances around them, the call, the people involved, there are unlimited calculations for shootings in the past and shootings to come. None of them will be the same. So it's very important to consider those things. Now, a lot of people, when giving their opinion on these shootings, it's easy to look at the history of the person who was shot. It's easy to say, oh, well, he was a dirtbag. He was a sex offender. He had an illegal gun on him. It's easy to do that. And there is merit to that. It does say something. You do learn from those facts after the fact. But I'm going to look at this situation based on what the officers would have known in the moment. Okay, so first things first, the officers are responding to a call, a complaint where a male had produced a firearm and allegedly pointed it at somebody. Okay, there potentially could be video of this, is what we're hearing. I haven't seen any yet. These are the alleged claims of the complainant. So you have to understand, when officers get a call where there's a firearm involved, this is not just like going to a theft or shoplifting. This isn't like going to a domestic. When you get a call where there has been a firearm seen, there is a stark difference to how you handle this, the mindset going into this, because this could potentially be your life. This could potentially be someone in of the public's life. There's so many different factors when a weapon is involved. So the officers arrive on scene at this convenience store. They find the male who had been described by the complainant. They approach him and they're giving him commands. They are lawfully placed to investigate this call. They give him commands, but he doesn't listen. First thing, he doesn't listen to lawful verbal commands. There's no use of force here. These are verbal commands from a lawfully placed police officer. Nothing. So once the verbal commands don't work, things escalate. Now the officers utilize their tasers. In the video, you can see Alton Sterling. He's standing there. He's non-compliant. And there's a firearm allegedly involved. He's not listening to officers. They escalate. Tasers. Now, it's very important to understand that with tasers, depending on who you are, what you have in your system, there are multiple reasons why a taser may not work. And there have been situations where even in recruit class, someone gets tased, or two people get tased, and one person has a starkly different reaction than the other. We're just different at the end of the day. So tasers are not an 100% success rate tool. Depending on whether the subject has a drug in him, cocaine, methamphetamines, whatever the case is, tasers are not 100% successful. And in the video, you actually hear there are two taser deployments, none of which work. Okay, so that's non-lethal. We're still in the realm of non-lethal. The officer then tackles Alton Sterling. Okay, and then now there's a struggle. The fight is on. Still, he's not listening. He wasn't listening standing up. He's not going to listen while you're rolling down around in the ground with him. So while you have him on the ground, it's not uncommon to use pain compliance methods, pressure points. You know what I'm saying? Still non-lethal. The dynamic is now at hyperspeed when this male is reaching for his waistband, reaching for his pockets, where a .38 special is in his possession. The officers tell him, they draw their firearms, if you continue to reach, I will shoot you, in more colorful language. This is all recorded. I encourage you to check the video out if you haven't seen it already. Unfortunately, he doesn't comply, continues reaching as they're trying to gain control of his hands, and he is shot and he is killed. It's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. It's sad. But I think that we need to be realistic in our assessment of these situations. What do we expect to happen? I can guarantee you folks, regardless of your color, regardless of your background, whatever the case may be, if you have a firearm on you, and at this point, the officers don't know whether the firearm is legal or not. They know that this person has a firearm and he's not obeying. As a matter of fact, he's reaching for that firearm. My partner may be in danger. My life may be in danger. And so you have to put yourself in that situation. And I guarantee, like I said, that if you have a firearm in your pockets, not seen, but you're reaching for it, and police are struggling with you, telling you that if you move, you will be shot, they are doing that for a reason. And Alton Sterling did not listen, and he was shot and killed. Yet still there was this outrage. People claiming police brutality, excessive force. Went before the courts, and it was decided that there would be no charges. I think any reasonable person in the role of the police officers would have a reason to fear for their lives, therefore justifying the use of their firearm. As tragic as it is, folks, this was a justified shooting. I'll be back with more after these messages.
1877 politic, POLI politic,
1877 politic.
Express your views today. Political Storm is a nonpartisan news site sharing independent journalism from varying views because we know that discussion matters. Which is why we stay truly nonpartisan by sharing content from viewers just like you. Create a blog, join a conversation, and get your voice heard only at politicalstorm.com.
Welcome back to the Objective Podcast. Just before the break, we were discussing Alton Sterling. As tragic as that death was, that shooting, the police shooting was, it was brought forth to the courts, went through the courts, it was investigated, and the officers will not be facing charges. This obviously caused anger, it caused hatred, mistrust towards police. And like I said, this mistrust is a historical thing. Whether it is justified is a completely different issue, but it is historical in nature. So in Sacramento, you have a situation where there's another call to police that this male, whether he's breaking into, vehicles, trying door handles, whatever the case may be, property damage, police get a call from the public who sees this guy acting really weird. Police attend, and this guy's, as you can see on the helicopter video, he's jumping through, backyard, jumping over fences, and the altercation comes to a climax at his grandparents' house. And police, they give verbal commands again, and the male, according to police, now I still need to see the helicopter video, or if the helicopter actually captured this, because they have thermal view. It was nighttime, it was dark, police were chasing this guy, don't know who he is, or exactly what he was doing. He's jumping, evading police. That causes concern to the responding officers. And he allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly because I wasn't there, he allegedly took his cell phone and put it outwards towards the police, resembling a firearm at dark at night. This is a black phone. I can guarantee you, regardless of your color, if you were running from police for whatever reason, and it's dark at night and they're chasing you and they come to an enclosed area and you look at them and quickly put your hand forward holding this black thing, I can almost guarantee you that you will be shot and killed. This, folks, is the brutal reality. The best way to stay safe, the best way to ensure you have your life after a police interaction is to obey their commands. If their commands are unlawful, if you have an issue, if you know yourself, you're innocent, and they're telling you to stop and to get down on your knees and put your hands up, you can argue this in the court of law. In that moment, when you're dealing with police officers, that is not the place to argue your innocence. Okay, we have to understand that we live in a world where these cops, they get shot at on a regular basis. Police officers die in the United States on a regular basis. And we have to be very realistic. So this is obviously under investigation. It's caused uproar. And again, this is a 22-year-old male, a very young man. And it's sad. And we can't get to that point where we're so divided on an issue that we can't see the tragedy in a situation like this, because we fear that it will give up some real estate. We want to stay away from that and not get that extreme. But I just wanted to bring these two topics, these two incidences up to you. It's truly sad. And, you know, we live in a world where we're so divided that we're unable to speak to each other objectively, or we'll look at these situations objectively. When you hear police shooting black male or police shooting black unarmed male, judgment is already cast in the court of public opinion. In the court of law, there's typically a different response, because you're actually looking over evidence. You're hearing the testimony. You're hearing, you know, the entire case, what led up to these events. But in the court of public opinion, where the news, you know, in Hollywood, they sensationalize these issues, I think that we should be intellectually honest and acknowledge the sadness of the situation, but at the same time, understand that we have to look at these situations on a case-by-case basis. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Objective Podcast. I want you to remember, but even further, I want you to make it your goal to be objective. Have a good night.